Hi, Joel Bennett here from Organizational Wellness and Learning Systems. In 2024, researchers from the University of Washington, using the current population survey of workers for the entire country, found that the most prevalent psychosocial health risk factor was time pressure. In fact, 43% of the working population, millions and millions of workers, experience high time pressure, and that has an impact on mental health, stress, physical ailments, and other problems, including lower productivity. So we're interested in looking at how we can mitigate or reduce the impact of time pressure on employee health and well-being. And I'm going to report on a study here, a poster we did at the most recent Work Stress and Health Conference in Seattle, Washington, just this past summer. And the poster is Exploring Spirituality as a Protective Factor, Time at Work, Work Pace, and Health. This is a study that looked at a sample of small business workers, very diverse in terms of race and ethnicity and gender, from high-risk occupations, construction, restaurant work, service work, transportation. What we looked at, we had this is a sample of 1,500. Our sample model was, we wanted to see whether or not spirituality would, as you can see here, moderated the impact of time and time pressure on health. So I'm going to explain to you what we actually surveyed. This was a survey. We did pre and post analyses as well. Time pressure was measured by hectic work pace, hours worked per week, and multitasking, like having to do many different things at once. Health was looked at as physical symptoms, emotional health, and also expressing oneself at work, being able to be fully present at work. Spirituality was looked at from a personal and a workplace perspective. So these are all our measures: personal spirituality, workplace spirituality, time pressure, and health. There's a lot here, but I'm going to focus on some of the main findings. The first thing we found is that of all our time variables, hectic climate, so employees are often expected to work overtime, the work pace often feels rushed, was the most significant predictor. Those who experienced higher hectic work climates at the individual level and at the business level had lower self-expression at work, more physical health symptoms, less emotional health, and less spiritual health. Very consistent with the national data on time pressure. We also looked at the spirituality factors, and we found that those who reported that work contributed to their meaning in life had better self-expression at work, less health symptoms, more emotional health, and more spiritual health. We also found that those who prayed more regularly or meditated regularly also had better health outcomes. And also those who saw spirituality as important had better health outcomes. We also looked at different types of ways that people practice spirituality, whether they meditate and pray every day, whether they meditate or pray at different times, and so forth. And we're explaining some of those results. Some of the key findings that are related to our hypothesis that spirituality does, in fact, buffer the impact of time pressure on health. The first one is shown here. What we have is low hectic work pace, high hectic pace. And what you can see here is illness symptoms. And these were ratings of frequency of fatigue, muscle tension, irritability, headaches, nausea. This was a physical symptom checklist. Those individuals who had the most physical health symptoms were people who worked in a high hectic pace and found that work was not as much meaningful to them. Those are the ones who experienced the most. Those who experienced the least were those in a low hectic work pace, right? With also more meaningful work. But the key here is there's an interaction that even those people who work in a high hectic work pace, if they find that work is meaningful to them, they experience less physical health symptoms. That's the key finding here. If you're working in a very time-pressured environment, you're less likely to get sick if you feel that work is meaningful to you. That's the first finding. The second finding I want to point out to is in terms of emotional health. What you'll see here are these different bars. These represent different types of spiritual practice. The first type are those who meditate or pray monthly or less, which represented 228 of our full sample. So I would say maybe 15 to 20%. What you'll see here are those who work in a high hectic work pace, who don't meditate or pray as often, have less emotional health. That's our lowest bar. So the outcome here was emotional health. So what we see is that illness symptoms and emotional health are lower for people who work in a high hectic work pace. However, if you notice over here, these are individuals who pray or meditate more than once a day. What you'll notice is there's really no difference whether they're in a low hectic pace or high hectic pace. What does this mean? It means that, again, prayer, meditation, taking time out for oneself for spirituality seems to be a protective factor in these high-pressured, time-pressured environments. Bottom line, the study indicates that our modeling, our statistical modeling of both workplace time and spirituality are worth exploring. Employees who prioritize spiritual practice may develop use of time other than clock time, and so may be more immune from time pressure. We're not the only ones who've said this. We have references here. For example, Richmond work as spiritual practice. So I want to just convey that many of us are experiencing time pressure. Please do what you can to incorporate some element of spirituality, whether it's prayer, meditation, or viewing work as meaningful. Thank you. This is Organizational Wellness and Learning Systems, and we have programs, our presence programs and other programs that we provide to workplaces to integrate the idea of meaningfulness, transcendence, and purpose and spirituality into the work environment. Thank you.